What's up, guys? Subzeric here, back for another patch rundown, patch preview type video because patch 14.19 is coming out tomorrow. I don't really feel like doing a VOD review of a patch that's, about to be not the current patch anymore. I don't want to do another Callisto VOD review, so I want to talk about the new patch and yeah, talk through all the changes, sort of review it, make sure that we're all on the same page, talk about what I think is going to be really, really strong after the patch, what I think is going to be really, really weak. So yeah, let's hop into it. The big actual nerf they saved the best for first here is that Fairy, the healing and shielding of the armor is going from 35% down to 25%, and the queen healing on that is going from 15% down to 12%. This is a big nerf, especially because you throw this onto Rakan, and Rakan does an insane amount of healing and shielding. And so I think this is actually the only nerf for the Fairy comp, and I think a lot of people might say that's too little. This comp is absolutely dominating, but I think this is actually probably fine. This is a substantial nerf, 35 down to 25%. It's 10%, but it's not really 10%. It's 10 over 35. It's almost like a 30% nerf or something like that. If you just go from what we were at to what we are at now, and similarly with the queen healing, that's a 20% nerf, 15 down to 12%, even though the number is only 3. Look, I'm not going to get into that stuff too much, but overall this is probably the biggest change in the patch, just because it is really hitting that comp hard, and I think it's good. I think that comp was out of line, but I don't think it was so out of line that you need to absolutely destroy it. And I really like this kind of sort of like soft approach to balance this patch. They've gotten this far into the patch, so they know, or this far into the set, so they know that, they don't really want to just like completely make Kalista a non-factor in the meta anymore. They want to take a very small approach, tweak things a little bit, and the meta's almost in a really good spot, in my opinion. There's a lot of stuff that's really close to balanced, and so I'm quite happy with this, actually. And like, if we get Kalista, bring it down a little bit. There's so many other 4-cost comps that can flourish, and that have been flourishing even with Kalista being broken. Speaking of other 4-cost comps, Frost getting buffed a little bit here. I don't really care that much. This is only a buff at 9 Frost, really, and then a small nerf at other levels of Frost. I don't think it's really the biggest deal, but sure, I'm fine with this. Honeymancy, this is an interesting change. So it's getting nerfed at the lower levels of Honeymancy, and actually at the top levels of Honeymancy for the damage taken part, but it's getting a small buff for damage dealt per B. So for the offensive carries, stuff like Ziggs, this is I guess a little bit of a nerf, because it's going to take you longer it's going to be harder to get to that end game, and then even at the end game it's buffed a little bit, or it's nerfed a little bit. Stuff like Blitzcrank, obviously he really relies on that damage taken, so that's going to hurt him as well. I think this is pretty appropriate, and there's also another nerf to Ziggs in here, so I think they went the right amount on Ziggs. Mage 10-piece buff, sure, why not? Sugarcraft 6-piece HP buff, absolutely necessary. If you guys haven't looked, I thought about taking like a Sugarcraft +1, and someone was in call with me, and they were like, do not take this. 6 Sugarcraft is one of the worst traits in the entire game right now, 5.19. So it needs a lot of help, and I don't know if it got all the help that it needs this patch, but it definitely got some help in the right places. We'll see. It really hinges on the Gwen changes, which we'll talk about, but I think this is a step in the right direction. And then for warrior buff as well, I think this makes sense. For warrior is very underplayed. That's another one where if you kind of like look at the statistics, for warrior is very much underperforming. If you can get to 6, it's good, but before that, not very good. Eldritch buffs overall, I like this as well. Vertical Eldritch is something, I did a video on it this past week. It's pretty niche, right? Or I guess it was end of last week. It's pretty niche, right? People aren't playing around Vertical Eldritch very much. And, they want them to be. Eldritch should be a premier vertical. It's got a 4-cost in it. It's got some reroll lines in it with like Syndra and stuff. You should be able to play around Vertical Eldritch, and you can't really right now. So I like these changes for Eldritch a lot. Well, not too much, but a decent amount of extra HP across the board for like the 3 and 5 and even the 7, and some extra ability damage. So I like these changes. Once again, I think they're not huge changes, right? Going from like 1 to 1.05. It's an itty bitty change, but I think it's good when Eldritch is it's not bad, right? We saw the game that Dish So played on it, where he tempoed it really hard and did very well on it. If you haven't watched that, then go check out my VOD. Maybe that VOD will be even more relevant because, more people are playing Eldritch after these changes. All right, 1-cost changes. I love these. I love these a lot. Buffs. I've said the entire set I really like playing around mages, and this last patch it just hasn't been possible. And I'm really a fan of the mage opener. The mage opener actually got pretty stealth nerfed this last patch, and I didn't realize why until I had played a few games. But it's because you can't play 2 fairy anymore. It's really hard to fit 3 fairy plus 3 mage because you want to fit stuff like Galio and get stuff like Vanguard in. And it's just not very easy to play 3 mage 3 fairy. And so stuff like Seraphine needs actually a buff because you're never getting, what it used to be, which would be you play 3 mage 2 fairy and it would be fantastic. You can't really get that anymore. So I like this buff. A decent buff to Soraka as well, making her 1 less auto to cast after like every single time after the first cast. I like as well. I don't know if this is even. Well, we'll see. They're buffing Veigar a little bit, so hopefully that's enough to bring mages back into the meta. And this is a sizable buff to Seraphine, about a 10% buff. So it's I think this is a good place to start. And then, like if mages still suck, we can go from there. I did think that Seraphine was quite strong prior to this fairy change. The problem is just with the change to fairy, it's kind of harder to play her with mages now. So we'll see. I think this is a good place to start. This Twitch chain doesn't do anything. I mean, it matters for Lucky Gloves, which sure, I'm down. Ziggs nerfs, once again, not a huge nerf, but definitely necessary, especially along with the hit to Honeymancy. I like this. This is a comp that was strong, but not so overperforming that people are like, I'm just gonna full open and play Ziggs reroll every game. And so I think a light nerf on this to maybe bring some other reroll comps into the meta, I think is perfect. I love this. I think that's great. All right, other slightly small changes, but I like most of these as well. Ahri here, a little bit of a buff, a teeny tiny buff. Honestly, should I say that they could have gone harder on this? I don't know, because if Ahri ends up broken, then but I get the sense that they could go a little bit harder on this. This Ahri comp feels very underwhelming and just very underplayed, and I don't believe that they buffed any other part of it. There's always the chance, though, that with, the meta shaking up with some stuff being taken out, maybe she's more playable. So I won't 100% say I don't like this. I do feel like you could probably do a little bit more than this, which seems tiny. Akali buffs, love this. Akali was kind of left out to dry with the nerfs to multi-strikers. She was really good in the Kassadin Akali meta, and then since then, she's just been kind of ass. And so I like this buff. Akali is also such a fun unit to play around that I really want her to be strong. And in a similar vein, Neela was also kind of left out to dry. She was very strong when warriors were strong. Then all that stuff got brought back, and she's also been left out to dry. Nobody's playing around Neela 3 right now. So a little bit of a buff to Neela 3 looks good. And then nobody more than Syndra has paid the sins for being a broken reroll champion. So broken at the start of the set, and basically just taken out back after that patch because it was early on the set. They wanted to make sure that there was not, a patch where 2 patches in a row where Syndra would be broken, so they made her just an unplayable champion. So they're slowly buffing her every single patch to try to make her strong again. This is a decent buff, like 330 to 345 is pretty good. The AoE damage as well, getting a small buff. Once again, the issue with Syndra isn't completely, her damage. It's that, like, now it's a lot harder to stack her, but, I mean, it was way too easy to stack her before. So I think, if you continue buffing the damage, it will help. But I don't really think this is enough to bring Syndra back in the meta just because of the spot that she's in right now. We'll see. I think you could probably go a little bit harder on this, but obviously they don't want to go too hard. So I don't hate it as a starting point. More nerfs. Or more changes. Big nerfs to some of these 3 costs that have been overperforming. I think this is fantastic, though. Ezreal has really carried the blaster comp this entire patch. You get an early Ezreal and you're like, all right, I'm playing blasters, and this guy's a monster when itemized. So 5 AD nerf. It's a pretty sizable nerf, actually. AD, affects everything in a champion like this, and it affects his scaling when you 2-star and 3-star him. So this is a pretty sizable nerf. Is it too hard? Probably not. I think Ezreal is quite a strong unit, so I think this is probably relevant. Another thing that's certainly not too hard is this Hecarim nerf. Hecarim, I wonder if this is not light enough, or if this is too light. I feel like this might be too light for Hecarim, a unit that was just insanely broken this entire patch. If you get an early Hecarim, you're always playing that on this board, and it's always carrying you, through all of stage 2, stage 3, and then, oftentimes even stage 4. I'm a little surprised by this. I think they probably could have gone a little bit harder on this. I feel like Hecarim will still be very strong after the patch, but we will see. Jinx, really hurt by her new rework. Her and Wukong just near unplayable. There are niche scenarios where you can play them. 6 Hunter, Jinx is still quite strong, or if you get like the Renance augment, category 5, still maybe, but but outside of that, really, really not very playable. So I like this buff, bring her back up a little bit, get her a little bit more of that AD scaling on her ability. I like this. Yeah, I like this. I think she needs. I don't know why this number is green, even though it's the same. It's just this 100 to 110 80%, which yeah, I like this. Also needs Jinx needs to be better because Sugarcraft is so bad. This is one of the only changes that kind of confuses me a little bit. Katarina nerf. In none of my games did I feel like Katarina was overperforming. Mort said she's one of the strongest units in the game. Or something like that. I'm probably misquoting him, so don't completely quote me on that. But he essentially said she was like deceptively strong or something like that. And they are buffing 4 warriors, so maybe. But you know, it was very rare that I saw Katarina 3 popping off. Maybe you could say that she was strong in the mid game, but once again, you know, compare Katarina popping off in the mid game to Hecarim, I feel like it was no contest. So I'm a little bit surprised by this nerf. Maybe they feel it's necessary. It is also a minor nerf to Fairy, which I think is good. But yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that Katarina got hit, especially because she really hasn't had her time in the sun. There hasn't really been a premier Katarina carry comp this entire set, and I don't think there still will be after this. So kind of weird. That's one of that, you know, gives me a little bit of head scratch. Veigar here buffed at 3-star. This isn't really where Veigar struggles. Veigar can still win games if the stars align, but they are buffing his early game in the fact that they're buffing the other mages. And so I don't really think this is an issue. It's a decent buff to his 3-star spell damage, but honestly, he's going to win you lobbies late game if you can get to the perfect setup, and I think that's still the case here. It just means that like maybe the games where you would go second to a really broken board, you'll actually go first, which I think is appropriate. But yeah, I think this is completely fine, and I love playing mages, so I'm down for that. Wukong buff. Wukong, one of another kind of like miss with the sort of reworks, I would say, like felt very hard to play around this patch. But I think they like where he's at now, where he's a little bit easier to balance. Also, I looked at his itemization. The statistics still basically said build Gargoyle on him, at least. Maybe the BIS is not triple Gargoyle, but it's still Gargoyle like Warmogs or something. So I don't know if this rework was really a success or not. But I do like a Wukong buff. This unit was quite weak. They also buffed his augment with some bug fixes, which I think is absolutely necessary. All right, this is a huge one. So Gwen went from a very strong carry to this patch being one of the probably the weakest forecast in the game because they changed how her AI works. She, the current patch that we're in right now really prioritizes survivability, which means that she's usually only snipping 1 unit per cast, which is really bad. She's doing very little damage. Buff to Gwen, where now she is trying to hit more units, so she's prioritizing hitting a lot of units, but she will be a little bit safer. And then also, I really like the second change as well, where if her target's out of her dash, she doesn't just like infinite dash. She just dashes 3 hexes. There would be weird scenarios where you would have like a blue buff Gwen who would be like insta casting, and she would just like dash across the map, sometimes pop off, sometimes kill herself. It was really a strange setup for Gwen. So I like these changes. Because of that, they are nerfing her damage, which I think is absolutely, if the changes are what they say, I think this is absolutely justified, because they're going to be she's going to be a beast with these changes. She was very strong before they kind of made her AI not very good. So I like this change. I hope Gwen is back as a solid unit. You can play like a Gwen Fiora comp and feel good about it, because right now you really don't feel that great about it. So I hope this is a change that does what they say. No other changes to forecast. So like no Rakan nerf, no Kalista nerf, or anything like that. I like that. I talked about it earlier, but if you nerf Rakan the unit and the crown or the armor or whatever, then it just means that you can't play Rakan as a tank in other comps. I want Rakan to be a playable 4 preserver tank, even if you're not playing 5 fairy. So I like that they nerfed the 5 fairy instead of Rakan. I actually really like that, because I think Riot Games often does the sort of opposite, where they say, okay, this unit's broken because of a trait, so we're going to nerf the unit itself, which seems weird. I like the way they've done it this patch, where they've just attacked it right at the root cause here, which is the fairy armor here. So no nerf to Rakan, no nerf to Kalista. I think it's fine. Kalista was not outputting insane amounts of damage. Obviously with Guinsoo she could, but the only reason that she could do all that is because Rakan was an invincible tank with the amount of healing and shielding that he was getting. So yeah, I like no changes to other forecasts. I think Varus is in a pretty good spot. He's certainly very playable. playable. Rise, Karma, quite playable. I think maybe you could touch Karma a little bit, but she is also getting kind of indirectly buffed in the fact that Gwen's getting buffed, and so like the Karma Warriors comp is going to be a bit better. So probably fine to leave Karma as is. Maybe we could have given her like a tiny buff. But yeah, all good. 5 cost. This is a really, really big one, and one people have been talking about since the start of the set. Briar is no longer unstoppable in her frenzied form. Yeah, for some reason, Briar would just get CC immunity as part of her ability for no reason. It's not in the text of it, but she would just be unstoppable sometimes, which is not good. So I like that they bug fixed. It's also a nerf to Briar, which I think is acceptable. I think I heard somebody say like Briar's gonna be like unplayable or something. I certainly don't think that's the case. I think Briar is one of the best, carries, one of the best 5-cost carries that exists right now. And so this light nerf, I think is absolutely appropriate and is good. We'll see. But yeah, I think this is perfectly fine. I think Briar will still be very, very strong. You put items on her, you feed her a bunch, she's a monster. Small Morgana nerf, the true damage threshold going from 33% down to 25%. Just the idea being that she's executing too many units, doing too much work. I think that's fine as well. Morgana is one of the strongest 5-costs, so I'm happy with this. And then lastly, Nora buffs. Praise Mortdog. This Nora unit was, in my opinion, the worst 5-cost carry. I have seen so many egregious examples of people being like, I hit a Nora too early. I had Kai came into our Discord and was like, this Nora unit sucks, man. I hit like a Nora 2 stage 4, and then I just lost out. And that's happened to many people because this unit is just not ideal as a carry. Very often you would want your items on a different champion instead of the Nora 2, which is odd. So I like this Nora buff to make Nora a little bit more of a carry. If you high roll an early Nora 2, you should be very, very hyped for her to be your AP carry, not very unhyped because she's just going to kill nothing. And the mana is a very important buff for Nora because Nora cares about getting those multiple casts off and getting all those bounces. So I think this is a really, really good buff for Nora. It doesn't buff her damage, but does buff her damage. So yeah. All right, items here. Moonstone Renewer nerfs. This has been needed. This is the most broken support item. It's been insta-pick the entire set. Not sure why this took this long, but I like the nerf. And then some buffs to the worse Radiant items. This is another really good call out here. If you just look statistically and go to Radiant items, Sunlight Cape, Willbreaker, Demon Slayer, Rosethorn Vest, all of these underperforming, and they buffed all of them. So I love this. Radiant items are one of the kind of a pain point as far as item balance. As you can see, the worst or the best one versus the worst one being like such a. Why does it say that these are the best ones? I don't know. I'm pretty sure this isn't already coming from the new patch, is it? In any case, these were underperforming. Am I like losing my mind here though, that it does say that like all these ones that they buffed were like the best ones? That's weird, but I haven't seen these perform that well, so I think this might be like a sample size issue or something. I don't know. Go to Masters Plus or something. That's a bit strange. I don't know. Maybe we could look at a different stats website. In any case, the fact that the best Radiant versus the worst Radiant is this much of a delta, I do think. I mean, there's Equinox down there, so at least that one's getting buffed. But the fact that there's that much of a delta is a little strange to me. Ideally, you should be able to play any Radiant item, and you shouldn't have to do this kind of metagaming where you look at the strongest ones and then you're like, okay, I have to angle for this one because it's broken. And we've gotten a lot better, from the days where like Static Shiv was like giga broken and stuff like that. But it's still not perfect balance, and it never will be. But I like that they're trying to get closer to perfect. Though I don't know what's going on with those stats because I don't believe that these are broken. But those stats that I don't know. Someone will tell me in the comments and we'll explain why I'm wrong because I'm just glancing at stats while I talk about all this stuff. All right. Augments, flexible, got a bug fix where it works on away boards, but they had to nerf it. This augments in about the right spot, so I like it. And then a lot of buffs to the hero augments. Witchy Wallop, High Horsepower, Spider Queen. People are going to be like, oh my god, they're buffing the hero augments. No. But these are light buffs. These are not buffed back to how strong they were before the previous patch, and I like this. A lot of these were over nerfed just because, once again, they didn't want them to be broken for 2 patches in a row, so I like these nerfs. Item ladder coming back. I like it. This is a very, very fun one to play around, so I'm hyped for item ladder. The Shen augment, Pillar of Flame, the worst augment in the game, receiving a pretty light buff, but some pretty big bug fixes. So we'll talk about that later as well. Royal Guard, the Fairy augment being nerfed. I think this is fine. This augment's quite strong. Same with the Winter is Coming, the Frost augment, and then Zap Attack, small nerf. This is like one of the only well-performing hero augments. So, and it was very well-performing. So I like this. Couple of new charms, which are fun. The Conjure Support that gives you a support anvil for 25 gold. I think this is a nice way to use your gold late game if you're like not going to be pushing levels. So I like this. And then Study Hard. 1 gold to gain 2 XP for each Study Hard you bought this game. Pretty fun. I do wish, it's a small thing, but I do wish with charms like these, like Study Hard and the coin flip one, that there was more of a way that you could like, you know, roll and get more coin flips and play like a coin flip build. I think that was like the idea behind these charms, but that never really materialized across the set just because there's so many charms you can't like dig through to look for a specific one. So it's a little bit sad that that doesn't exist, but it's still, you know, nice little charm. Oh, this is huge. This is huge. Removed Desperate Plea. I don't know why they brought this garbage. I was gonna swear, but we're family friendly here. I don't know if I've sworn already. I don't know why they brought this charm back in the first place. I don't know why they wanted it to work, but I'm happy that it's out of the game. This charm has no business existing in the game. From playtest, I said it wasn't gonna make it to live, and we're halfway through the set, and this is still in the game. This is absolute insanity. But I'm happy that it's out. And then also removing Conjure Pan and Conjure Spatula is kind of interesting. I think they're kind of afraid of, you know, running around with too many, you know, like 9 frosts being hit and stuff like that. So I don't completely dislike this. I do like these as charms, though. I think they're pretty fun. In my opinion, this wasn't a huge issue, but maybe people will disagree with me and say that they, you know, didn't like that stuff happening. In my feeling, these were fun charms that enabled lines that wouldn't have existed otherwise. Tremors nerf here is interesting. Tremors is quite broken. But it's not even really the most broken of these charms. If you use Meta TFT, you can look at charms win rates here and look at just the round win rate of these charms. So obviously, if you get something, I've never even seen this one, Death, Kill Everything, Profit. What is this? Is this in the game? I guess it's in the. How do you get this one? I've never even seen this one. But in any case, you know, if you get something like the star that stars up your 1 cost, give everybody shields, this is obviously broken. And then, you know, the ones like Desperate Plea obviously have a very bad round win rate. If you look at this and you look for Tremors, you'll see it's very high, 58%. But it's not even better than something like a Summon Golem or a Guild of Thieves, which are at the same cost. So I'm kind of surprised that Tremors got nerfed here when these are actually like more offensive in terms of the strength. And, you know, Mort talked about how Tremors is better than Summon Dragon, which is true, but so are both of these. So I think Tremors is like not very fun to play against, which is why it's getting nerfed. But I feel like this is a bit of a miss for me. In my opinion, this one's completely fine. And it's in line with the other 8-cost charms. So I don't really have an issue with it. Honestly, I can't say this, but maybe buff the dragon a little bit, but I cannot. I didn't say that. I did not say that because they'll kill me. They'll kill me for saying that. Re-enable Lightning Strike and Meteor Storm because they fixed the bug with those causing ties. Good. And then on bugs, a few bug fixes, a few important ones. Akali is now no longer bugged with Renan's and Hextech Gunblade. If you ever had your Akali dash and then just freeze for no reason, it's because you built a Renan's or a Gunblade on her. So great that is out of there. I believe I said this in one of my last patch rundowns. So if you guys want to know about bugs, then hey, watch the past rundowns. Pillar of Flame. It if there's no targets in range, it just goes to the next target, which is really, really good. And it also works better on away boards, which is good. And is there anything else big? Draconic Mastery doesn't count on PV rounds, so that's going to be a bit weaker. Yumi's giving AD instead of AP to stuff like Varus and Ezreal, which is like kind of big. And then I don't think there's anything else in here. Oh, and then the Wukong augment now being 2 seconds instead of 0.3. So this one should be a lot better. Oh yeah, and Mordekaiser is no longer bugged with Mage Emblem. Before, he would not be mana locked, so you would kind of get this kind of broken interaction between him and Mage Emblem. So that is the rundown. Big takeaways, I would say, are, I think, the meta should be in a good spot. I don't see anything here that's that out of line. Like I said, stuff like Katarina being nerfed a little too far, in my opinion. But like overall, like in the 4-cost meta, I think we should have a very, very healthy 4-cost meta of stuff like Varus and Karma and Ryze. Nami's kind of left out a little bit from that party because like the Mage Ryze version just, seem to fall off this patch. But hey, maybe it'll be back this patch. I think Kalista Rakan should certainly still be playable, but not as broken as it once was. You're not going to have 10 people playing it a lobby. Stuff like Sugarcraft +1 should be good. I like this patch. There's nothing that I see in this patch that makes me scared. And that's probably a bad sign because there's probably something completely broken that I haven't seen, that no one's seen, that's going to come out next patch. But hope you guys enjoyed the rundown. Good luck on your games with the new patch. I'll obviously do a VOD review tomorrow of some broken thing that appears on the first day of the patch, because always happens. But overall, I like the patch, and I'm excited to play on it. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. Check out my Twitch channel. My links are down below. Thank you guys again for watching, as always.